Good evening, everyone. I am Mark. Welcome to On the Wrong Lead, our big Thursday stream. Obviously, if I'm up here first, that means that I am stuck in hosting duties tonight. Josh had an unexpected last-minute family emergency, so he had to step out for that. And I'll let him tell about it when we get there. Big show tonight, though. We have a really killer guest. I will let him introduce himself when we pull him in here. Be talking some Belmont Stakes. We're getting your Belmont Stakes Belmont card for Saturday. Some big stakes races, Man of War being the feature with some really killer fields. Getting really into that, what feels like some of the classier turf racing for the year, which is always a really exciting time as a horse racing fan. And and I think finally we'll get into a little bit of some of the Derby Day or Oaks Derby Day craziness that went on. I think that people want to kind of chat about that. So let me bring in the other On the Wrong Lead person who's actually here. The real reason that we have a special guest is our good friend and fellow co-host, Mr. Brian Duransky, decided to go back and get his MBA, and his graduation was tonight. And he decided that instead of hanging out with us and talking horses, he wanted to hang out with his family and celebrate or something. Caleb, how does that make you feel?
I mean, nobody's more surprised that Brian has an MBA than we are, right? I mean, we've seen him handicap.
But this is also true. Yeah.
That being said, we're proud of our friend Brian and glad that he's getting to celebrate tonight.
Yeah, no, we're very excited for him. Congrats, Brian. That's a huge achievement, especially because you live in Indiana. It's like extra hard, it's like an extra level of achievement. So, but we do have a special guest. He's feverishly munching on tots, so I'm going to give him like another 5 seconds to finish those up. And the one and only Mr. Ryan Dickey. Buddy, how's it going?
It's going great. Tots are wonderful. Did you say that BD is in the NBA?
Yeah, no, I mean, he's already fat, and then we stretched him out a little bit so he can dunk now.
Oh, and he's playing for the Pacers, you say?
Yeah, the Pacers of Indiana fame. So Brian, Ryan, give us a little bit of rundown of who you are and your deal, and then we'll get just talking some Derby shenanigans.
Hi, my name's Ryan, and I'm an alcoholic. Nice to meet you all. Been around horse racing for a while. Been around horse racing Twitter for quite some time. Put out a killer 1,000-like tweet today, so no big deal. I've owned some horses. Have one right now currently with Haphazard Racing. So big plug right here. Go to @Haphazard Racing. Find us, follow us, watch our shenanigans, see what we do with. We have a 2-year-old filly who's in the Tim Gleishaw barn. Churchill getting ready to make her debut sometime this spring. That's it.
Dude, awesome. No, nice to have you. Obviously, we all know you through the horse racing Twitter degeneracy that it is, and all talking smack to one another. And when we need a fill-in, you're some awesome fill-in shoes. So Ryan, what'd you think of the Derby? And I guess I'd say, what'd you think of the Oaks Derby card? Like, any big surprises? Anything that really jumped out at you that you went, oh man, I need to remember that going forward, or anything that? Obviously, we had the largest price ever in the Derby, so everybody wants to talk about that. But I think there was some interesting stuff on both the undercards both days.
Yeah, Jackie's Warrior was a stone cold single for me, and I've been doing this for about 30 years. I've never had a stone cold single win a race as easily as Jackie's Warrior won. It was disgusting. He just got out front. Nobody pressured him. He stayed out front. They looked back, and that was it. I mean, that was the race of the day for me, just because it was so easy for Jackie's Warrior.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. You had a couple of faces we hadn't seen in a while with Jack and Jack Christopher as well, and I think both of them won how you want to see those short prices win, which always seems like you get an upset in one of the short price favorites. To see them both win as well as they did, but then to have the prices come in races that I don't think a lot of us expected the prices at. I don't know very many people that had good weekends. Sound like you did, though.
Well, it wasn't a great weekend, but that was a good part of it right there. I mean, it's just one of those classic things is you always have too much on the losers and never enough on the winners. And I just didn't have enough on Jackie's Warrior, but it was the easiest single of the weekend.
No, very nice. Caleb, how'd your weekend shape out?
Yeah, not the best. As far as Jackie's Warrior goes, Steven brings up what I was about to say. Slower pace in Jackie's Warrior race than they actually had in the Kentucky Derby, going twice as far. So,
yeah.
Crazy how that worked out this weekend. Yeah. I don't think anybody saw that coming. I mean, maybe with Jackie getting an easy lead, that looked a little bit obvious on paper, but not so much what happened in the Derby. I'm sure we'll talk about the Derby itself, I guess. So picking a different race, I thought that the Chad Brown horse in the Distaff Turf Mile, Speak of the Devil, looks like one that you're going to want to remember. Speak of the Devil ran a ridiculous race. I mean, she just looped around the field, closed into the slow fractions. I mean, just one under a hand ride. This is a horse to keep an eye on for either the Breeders' Cup Mile or perhaps the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf if he tries to stretch her out. We'll kind of see what the plan is. Maybe the 4-star Dave this summer. I don't know, but she's definitely one that I'm going to be keeping my eye on for later this year.
Yeah, I thought she was amazingly talented, and we can kind of loop back to her on the back end of the Belmont card because there is a little bit of tie into her in the Begay. So I'll bring that up when we sort of get there. Anything else jump out at you guys? We want to talk Derby. We want to talk the most absurd pace dynamic that I think I've ever seen in a race.
I think so. We could probably talk about the Oaks, how it was supposed to be this big race between the top 4, and then some people said, top 5, and very logical winner. I mean, obviously we were going to have a logical winner, but Secret Oath, she looks like a colt when she runs. She looks, she's going into the Preakness, and I definitely would not discount her chances.
Yeah, she reminds me a lot of like a Rachel Alexandra type at this certain point in the year where you're watching her and you're going, well, she's a filly, but I don't think the boys can beat her right now, or if at least the gap between her and some of the boys isn't as big as it probably has been in certain years where there clearly is a gap. And obviously they've announced that she's going to be in the Preakness. What are your thoughts on her there?
Got to use her. Got to use her. Got to use her. Yeah, for sure. Especially, we're going to probably talk a lot about Rich Strike not making it to the Preakness, but I think that she was going to be a major contender either way. Now I think her odds are going to be a little bit lower. Some people say, there's going to be better odds on her now. I think it'll be a little bit lower now.
Yeah, I was actually really excited for Rich Strike to run on the Preakness, so I'd have the takeout reducer. So, I think, a lot of the sharps were kind of probably had the same mindset. So anything else in the undercard you guys want to talk? Anything else you jumped out at you, Caleb?
No, not really. I mean, I thought the Oaks was a really good race. I mean, it was a fun race to watch and bet. Secret Oath ran a good race. I won't have any money on her in the Preakness. I don't think she's quite that good, but I thought she's definitely, was the best that field that day anyway, although she'd get a bit of a setup there. I was probably wrong about Echo Zulu, who I didn't like at all, and she actually ran a lot better than I thought. I probably didn't give her enough credit, but she hung tough despite a really tough pace and a track that wasn't overwhelmingly playing towards speed, to say the least. So she's one that I heard they're going to cut her back to one turn and target the Acorn. I think that'll be a nice race for her later this summer.
Yeah, I think the cutback will probably suit her. I don't necessarily know if she wants to go that far. I think she ends up being that. We'll see how much they end up cutting her back and what they find as a distance she loves. But I do sort of agree that I think sometimes you see those, maybe a Serengeti Empress is another perfect example of this. Those types of horses that they're talented enough they can get the distance, but that's probably not their preferred distance. And I think she probably falls into that category. Cool. We want to talk a little Derby while we're here. I mean, obviously, the largest payout in Derby history. I think we all looked at the race and went, geez, there's a ton of pace in here. But I don't think we expected as much pace, or not. I don't think anybody expected as much pace as there was, but also where the pace sort of came from with the Japanese horse going, full send and the Dubai Shipper hooking up on the front end and going just absolutely melt it down, insanity. What'd you think of the race as a whole? Dynamics? Anything else that really stuck out to you?
For me, nothing I mean, nobody had Rich Strike. I mean, if like nobody had him on top anyway. Not even that I've ever talked to. I threw in Rich Strike on the bottom of the super because he's the kind of clunk up horse I would use in that spot. But I didn't think he could ever do better than third or fourth. So yeah, I mean, the pace was just quicker than I think I or anyone expected. And I mean, I expected Summers Tomorrow to go. To me, the horse that sort of changed the dynamic of the race was Crown Pride. I didn't expect him to be that forwardly placed and to really be ridden that aggressively. Maybe that should have been expected given the way this horse was working out in the morning, but they definitely did some unorthodox tactics there and kind of paid the price for it late. So it was a tough break for Epicenter. He probably would have won that Derby 99 times out of 100 if they run that race. That's just a horrible beat for him and Steve Asmussen, but happy for the connections of Rich Strike, although this, I probably still won't bet him for a long time. He got the breaks. He had a great ride by Sonny, and take nothing away. I mean, he got the job done.
Yeah, I think when I was looking, they were making comments in the paddock that Rich Strike looked like he wanted to run over the top of the horse in front of him. And I kind of remember that jumping out at me. And apparently, when I hear that kind of commentary, I'll toss that horse out of everything or under. It was sort of an odd comment, but to see him go as full send, obviously that was the intent right along. And they just went nuclear. And I think the biggest takeaway for me from the Derby was how good Epicenter is. I think you had some, with the pace dynamics of just how fast they went early, and he wasn't that far off it. Everybody else who hit the super was much further back than him. And of, the one speed that sort of clung on for a piece. And I mean, honestly, he finished second. I thought he ran amazingly well. And, I think he answered any sort of questions anybody might have had about his class. I mean, not that there really was, but, I think, he's going to be a legit threat all summer, going to be a really interesting horse to watch going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I had a horse in the barn of the Kentucky Derby winning trainer, and I never even considered putting $2 on the horse. It never even crossed my mind. So, I mean, I've been in this game for about 30 years, and here I am. I have a horse with a Derby contender trainer, and it never occurred to me, hey, maybe I should put $2 on this horse. I didn't even look at his past performances. I mean, I really didn't give him any shot, and I'm not embarrassed to say that because obviously nobody did. Nobody had any chance, thought he had any chance, and he did. He had a chance, and everything had to align, and it did all align. And you're right about Epicenter. He wins that 99 times out of 100. It's just bad luck all around, I guess. But he's the 2022 Kentucky Derby champion until anything else changes. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. A couple of questions out of chat. Let me throw some of these up. Jay sort of asking, stolen base, 12-1 morning line in the American Turf. Would you in winning the American Turf, would you guys make of that performance?
Killed me.
I had him. I had the horse underneath, but again, other things were dead from other races. But I thought it was a really good performance. A horse, to really watch going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think the two things I probably would take out of that is that it seems like a lot of the Turfway preps were pretty live. A lot of the Turfway shippers performed pretty well. Something I maybe keep an eye on for the rest of the Churchill meet. And going to kind of tie this into another question that John Massey brought up, is it certainly seemed like on the turf course you needed to be wide and off the pace. If you were on the fence or on the lead on the turf course, it felt like you just had no chance whatsoever. Stolen Base got that big, wide, looping trip on the crown of the course, and I mean, it was probably much the best anyway, given the way that he won that race. But definitely think he had the track playing to his advantage as well.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing. I know Caleb has talked about this a bunch for these sort of races where, when you have a horse that wins and you pay attention, you realize, okay, a part of the track was bad that day. The inside was bad, the outside was bad. Playing those horses next out, a lot of times you're going to get juiced prices because, they ran really poorly. Well, maybe they didn't run poorly. They were just up against it from a position or a bias standpoint. And you can oftentimes find prices that way. So something to note with, any horses coming off the turf that were inside drawn, because all those outside wide sweeping moves were what worked both Friday and Saturday on the turf.
Yeah, I thought the turf course played very well. I thought the dirt course it was fair enough. I didn't think there was any extreme biases, so that's good. I mean, we've seen plenty of times on big racing days where it's just a conveyor belt and the rail is golden and stuff like that. So at least I thought it was pretty fair for 2 days.
Yeah, and I'll touch on it real quick. Pratt with probably the worst ride of, I don't know, in years I've ever seen out of him on just one time, where he invented more trouble than I thought it was possible to invent. I don't know if we need to talk anymore about that one. It just was an opportunity for me to shit on Pratt. So I went there. That's what I do. Yeah. So anything else from last weekend? Want to hop into let's hop into this card then. Let me see if I can actually make share screen work and not screw something up. Which is we're gonna be DRF PP in it today.
I had faith.
What was that?
I had faith.
Oh, you had faith in me? I mean, at least there's one person on stream that has faith in me. I mean, because Caleb was like, no, Mark's going to screw this up 100%. So we're going to be running some DRF PPs tonight. I apologize for everybody that if you don't like these, they're my choice of my past performances. Oh, and I think I'm supposed to do this thing too. I can do the there we go. The G3 Vagrancy going 6.5 in the dirt for 4-year-old plus fillies. In here you have the return of Bella Sophia. And she's going to be a 4 to 5 shot in here. And, I looked at this race, and the first thing that popped in my mind was that, I don't think Bella Sophia is necessarily a need the lead type, but Miss Brazil drawn just inside of her has a ton of speed and is going to keep her a lot of company early. Does that cause this to go a little fast early, and maybe this melts down for somebody a little off the pace, because Bella Sophia is going to be super short in this? What do you think about this one, Ryan?
I think you're spot on. I think the two that go to the front are Miss Brazil and Bella Sophia. It's a very short field. Someone's got to go out front. We assume that Bella Sophia is going to be the one. And if Miss Brazil makes things really interesting up front, it could set up for, Frank's Rocket. But it's going to be real tough to beat Bella Sophia in this race, I do believe. And with a short field and short odds, short price on the favorite, you have to go elsewhere. I mean, give Miss Brazil a try, because if anyone's going to be the second choice here, just by looking at the past performances or just by looking at the names and the entries, everyone else is going to bet Frank's Rocket second. This is going to be a 2-horse race for everybody. So let's just go with Miss Brazil getting to the front, staying to the front. And let's say Bella Sophia doesn't have it coming off the bench and Miss Brazil wins, you're going to get a great price on her.
Caleb, you got anything in here?
Yeah, I had a hard time with this race. I think it's kind of a lousy betting race. The small field and a huge favorite. Bella Sophia is probably supposed to win this race. Her Breeders' Cup sprint probably wasn't that great, but she sort of went out there and dueled with Gamine, paid the price. They both sort of folded up. Beyond that, she was almost unbeatable. There is a layoff to contend with, so I think that is probably the big question mark here, is how she's going to do, off of the 6-month layoff. I kind of agree with Ryan. I think Miss Brazil is interesting in here. I mean, if you look back, they ran against each other in the Jersey Girl last year, and Miss Brazil broke through the gate, was extremely wide, had by far a worse trip that day, and only lost to Bella Sophia by a head. She didn't exactly come back to flatter that form in the victory ride, but the track was probably more on the muddy side of good that day. She came back in April in an allowance race and ran pretty well. So I don't know. I think she could give Bella Sophia a handful. Maybe they beat each other, but I don't really know who stands to benefit. I'm fully in camp Stephen Fox, where I don't like Frank's Rocket anymore. This horse has cost me far too much money lately, so I can't really go there. That's right. So I don't know. I don't really have a strong opinion here. I'm kind of with the audience here, Road Warrior. It's a great race to watch, but this is a kind of a gross one to bet. I'd probably maybe take a look at Miss Brazil or, somebody like, even Kept Waiting maybe. But for me, it's a bad betting race.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a bad betting race. If you're a horizontally focused player, you probably pick your poison in here and you just sort of move on. You either single Bella Sophia, or you're going to be spreading pretty deep and tossing Bella Sophia, trying to get around her. But again, it's not a great betting race. It's more of a sit back and watch race, and not something I would want to try to get verticals around. I kind of ended up on the logicals here. I thought, I think Frank's Rocket probably sits the perfect trip, but man, she's been a money burner ever ever since, forever, it seems like. And, I kind of wanted a fresh face. I wanted somebody new here, and I just couldn't really get to anybody. The one horses, they are calling for a fair bit of rain between Friday and Saturday in New York. If this comes up really wet, I know everybody knows my Tom Morley, Javier Castellano love. I think that, a sort of style one, if this is really wet, she's 4-6 on an off track. I think she's actually super interesting in here, but that's the only way I'd end up on her. And I had a real hard time sort of getting pageicles in what feels like a race that should have been run in California, right?
I mean, Frank Sprocket hasn't won since last July at Prairie Meadows.
Yeah, and again, who did she beat there? I mean, Blinkers and Quick Decision, two horses that I don't show as having one sense and I've never heard of. So I don't think that was the best of fields, and it just seems like she might be a little bit over this horse racing thing at this point in her career.
Yeah, she wants to be a mom.
She wants to be a mom. Anybody else have anything in here? Are there any other horses you want to talk about?
I just wanted to ask, and the number 3, this horse spent most of her career on turf, gets switched onto the dirt, and all of a sudden jumps out of her skin, runs, 3 really fast races. Bayer has those races significantly slower than time form. Her last race on time form is a 117, and on Briz it's a 98. So, pretty big difference there compared to what the Bayer figs come. And that was kind of my question: is these winter duct figs are tough to make? I mean, what do you guys? Is this horse just an aqueduct specialist that's kind of freaking against nobodies, or is this horse actually legit?
Yeah, my thought was, she's gone 100, 111, 117 on time form in her last 3, so she seems to be putting it together. And the fact of a 5-year-old mare suddenly really improving 3 starts in a row just feels wrong, and I tend to really doubt those figures. And the other problem we've run into is aqueduct form is just not translating. If you looked at Churchill down both days, there was a few aqueduct shippers. They did not run well at all. And I think just that the aqueduct winter form sometimes just doesn't translate as well as other things. And the other thing is that last race, that distaff, I don't love when a horse throws a career top in a losing effort. That those figures tend to be absolutely atrocious. So, I thought she was interesting if you're looking for an other or an outsider or the fresh face, but it almost feels like you're trying a little too hard to get to her.
I think Caleb nailed it when he said winter duct. I'm here for that.
No winter duct love?
No, not at all.
I like the parts, the early and the late part where they have turf racing, but I think Sweet Sassy sort of nailed it here. The aqueduct form is waiting to Kilroot of Finger Lakes and Monmouth. I think that's a pretty accurate take on what I've seen of winter duck form so far. And also Sweet Sassy is disappointed I'm not trying to get too cute. So, sassy. He's got the sassy. We haven't seen him in like a month, and he's got the sassy cranked up to 11. So we should we should start talking Breeders' Cup, and that'll perk right up. Anybody have anything else in here?
I don't think it's possible for you to get too cute.
Yeah, how cute can I really get, right?
You said it, not me.
Yeah. So race 5, the Run Happy, going 6 furlongs on the main. Chateau is your sort of lukewarm 5-2 morning line favorite. And question I sort of had when I looked at this race is Chateau gonna finally get brave on the front end and actually decide to win a race at Belmont? You think so? Really? You think so?
Yes, I do.
Tell me what's different this time.
He's going against 2 established winners in drafted and officiating. There doesn't seem to be any more speed outside of his own barn here in this race. If you look at the time form US pace, what they call it? What do they call that thing? Their pace form? Yeah, pace projector. Yes. Sorry about that. Craig. Anyway, if you look at that, the 2 horses that are scheduled to be on the lead are both Rob Atras horses, and Chateau is quite a bit ahead of Mr. Phil here, and I think that Chateau is going to be sent. He's going to send one of them, and Chateau looks like the one to do it. And in this 6 furlong sprint at Belmont, I mean, one turn, obviously it's a sprint. I don't see anybody else beating Chateau, even the 2 more well-established horses in drafting and officiating. I think Chateau gets to the front, stays the front, and gets his picture taken.
Okay, so with that stated, what's different than in the Tom Fool where officiating, track down, Chateau in the stretch and pass late? I mean, I realize we're not at the duct, but beyond that, what changes here?
Well, it didn't work for them last time, right?
No, officiating beat Chateau. Chateau stopped.
It didn't work. It didn't work for Chateau last time, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, Chateau tried to get brave and then does what Chateau always does: is it folded up in the stretch.
I really want to bet this horse instead of the other 2. I think the other 2 are going to take the money, so that's why I say that. I think this horse is the speed of the race. He's not exactly the lone speed because Mr. Phil can be there. Like I said, they're stable mates. I just have to put my faith in Rob Atris's training regimen. I'll say.
Rob Atris's magic beans, you mean?
His training regimen. He knows how to spot them. He knows how to gallop them. He knows how to do things better than a lot.
What do you got here, Caleb?
Well, I guess with Josh being out tonight, someone had to take the cheap speed. So, yeah, I think I'm in your camp, Mark. Not that you've necessarily talked yet, but from what you've said, I don't think you're a Chateau fan. And this horse gets loose every race because that's all this horse kind of knows how to do. And if this was at the duct, I'd be more interested because this horse has like 6 or 7 out of his 8 career wins at the duct. But hasn't quite been able to replicate that form anywhere else and actually couldn't even get it done at the duct last out. So for me, I'm going to go with the horse that beat him in number 5 officiating. That last race kind of, was a bit of a head scratcher, but Tampa's kind of a weird surface. A lot of horses just don't take to the surface there. It's a lot different than Aqueduct or Gulfstream or Belmont for that matter. So I'm not really going to lose too much sleep over that. Looking a little deeper, I mean, this horse is a bit of an every other race kind of horse. It has been making a habit out of throwing clunkers after wins. So maybe that's just what this horse kind of does at this point in his career. But I think officiating ran a great race against Chateau and Repo Rocks 2 back. Gets back to New York where he's had some success. And, for me, I mean, he can stay close enough to where Chateau on a loose lead or Mr. Phil, depending what he does, probably shouldn't get too far out of reach compared to some of the deeper closers. So I like officiating here.
Yeah, I land on the same horse as Caleb, which is never a good combination. It always ends poorly. But I ended up on officiating as well. I thought officiating had sort of answered the question versus both Chateau and Repo Rocks in that two back Aqueduct race. I didn't really feel. I just felt he's just better than those. And again, I think that you can kind of cross the line through that Tampa race. Seems like he likes running up north. This does seem to be one of the Saffies that he can ship around and get wins, which is sort of rare for the Saffie barn. And I thought officiating made a lot of sense in here. And I think, for me, after officiating, I really would have to buy every other horse in this race. I think this race to me was the hardest in this. We're going to cover 5. We're covering all the stakes action. This one was the hardest for me to handicap just because they're all the same. These horses all run. They take turns beating each other for the most part. They all run roughly the same speed figures. And there's no, obviously, I would love to get behind somebody like a Chateau just on that, super loose on the front end. But I just, Chateau, if Chateau had a history of, winning that, at this track, I would be much more high on the horse. Chateau just likes to stop in the stretch, especially at Belmont. So I just had a hard time. And I thought it was really one of those races that you kind of hit the all on. And quite honestly, there's a couple of others in here that are going to be short that don't seem to like Belmont as well. So I thought it was a really interesting, interesting sort of race. If again, this is one of those races. If you have an opinion and you can get real cute in this leg, this is the place to get real cute.
I'm going to toss Drafted. I think that a lot of people are going to bet Drafted, and I just don't see it. I mean, he's, like you said, he's proven he's not the greatest at Belmont. Now, he has been running in 7 furlong races. He's going back to 6, but he hasn't had a lot of recent success there. So I'm definitely tossing Drafted. I'm playing against him. I would just use 2 in this race. I'd just use Chateau and officiating. Those are the 2 I would use in multi-race bets.
Yeah, and I will say if the first thing, draft is sort of that. I don't love 1-run closers going 6, right? And that's sort of draft as run style. And but if the track does play like it did today, maybe those types can get up. So we'll see. Anything else in here, Caleb?
Not for me. Jay does bring up the number 4 answer in the chat here. Says fired good work or good races off a break before and thinks there's 4 horses that want to be close to the lead. I don't hate answer in as a horse to use here, but I don't know that I see 4 horses, out of the 6-horse field that really want to be on the lead. I kind of think Ryan's right, and the Chateau probably gets loose. They probably force the 6 to rate, given they're in the same barn. And I don't think anyone else in here is really fast enough to go. So I don't know that I see the pace the same way, but I don't hate answer in. This is a horse that, it bugs me when Brad Cox, gets the horse down to a claiming level and still struggles to get him to win. So, Robert Falcone's a good trainer, in his own right, but, Brad Cox is one of the best in the game, and even he gave up on this horse a little bit. So not totally sure that I'd go rushing to bet answer in, but if I could get a good enough price, then I wouldn't hate that play.
Yeah, one other horse I did want to touch on. I know Road Warrior mentioned Mr. Phil. He is a very cool horse. Been around a long time, and just one of those work hard, try hard types. And I do think there's a sort of scenario here. We know who's going to get loose on the front. We know Chateau's going to go. Mr. Phil's going to be your first run closer, and I don't know who this jock is at all. Not a jock that I am super familiar with, but. Is it Park Jock? Okay. And again, I don't really play parks, but I thought it was interesting that I do oftentimes, if you have that lone speedball that likes to stop, the horse that's going to be the first run closer is oftentimes really live. And if I'm going to get 6-1 on that, I thought Mr. Phil does make some sense in here.
Yep.
Cool. Let's flip on to the next then. Let's hit up the grade 1 Man of War. Going 11 furlongs on the inner. I think you get a pretty interesting sort of race here. You get the sort of what seems to be the best of these, stayer type American turf horses in Gouffroy. And you get Yabir in here, your defending Breeders' Cup, turf champion. Appleby sees fit to send him back over and ship over his number 1 jock to ride him. My only question in this race is, do you think that, and I know this is going to sound absolutely hilarious, I think 11 furlongs is a little bit sharp for Yabir. Does he actually want to be going further than that at this point in his career?
Let's take a look. Let's take a look. He's run a mile and a half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in a row here. So looks like that's what he's comfortable with. If you want to look for a reason to beat the defending Breeders' Cup turf champ, if that's a very, very good angle, maybe this race might be a little short for him. Just a little bit short, but no.
When you get to these kind of distances, I don't lose a ton of sleep over a furlong. If it was 7 versus 6, that's a different conversation, or a 2-turn mile versus 7. But a mile and a half or a mile and 3/8 for one of the best turf horses in the world. I don't think it's going to be a big issue for him personally.
Mm-mm. I'll tell you who I'm most interested in is the 4, Aban. I think that's going to be the one. I think that's the one that's going to be left off a lot of people's tickets. I think people look at this race and saying, there's only 6 horses in here. You got the defending Breeders' Cup turf champ. You got the 2. People like to call him Gouffo. They like that horse. They like to bet him a lot. So I think they're going to bet the 2 and the 3 here, and I think that leaves it open for the 4. As far as the pace dynamics, I really don't care. It's such a long race, and there's only 6 horses in it. As long as the 4, Aban, isn't way, way, way back behind everybody and they get off to a slow quarter and a slow half, I don't think it's going to matter. I really like this one. I think he ran a really good Pan American. I think he came around 3 wide at the top of the stretch, and he gave it the old college try, and he got beat by 2 lengths. But I think he can, hold his own here in this race, and the price is going to be right for me. So I'm going to go with the 4. Definitely not going to be a single for me, but I'm really interested in the 4 Aban for Pletcher.
I like that pick, Ryan. I actually have on my form written down Naira Special ? On this horse, because it just feels like one of those races where everyone bets the 2 and the 3, and Luis Saez somehow goes out there and goes like 51 and change to the half, and the next thing you know, they go merry-go-round all the way around the course. So I think that's a good pick. I'm with you on him. I mean, I do like Yabir. I do think he's the horse to play here. Don't get me wrong. But I think, Aban is kind of the sneaky horse that had a horrible trip in the Mac Diarmada. Didn't run poorly in the Pan American in a race that kind of fell apart. So I'm completely with you. I think that, Aban is kind of the one horse that I would want over Guvo anyway, is my second pick.
Right.
Yeah, so Jay sort of bringing up the point of, do you think that the 6 might go with the 4? And I don't actually think so. I think the 6 is a fair bit faster. And I think the only way that the 6 can win this is to go. So I think, So High has to kind of go to the front. And I think Aban will be sort of probably sitting just that. And, I think the game with the 6 here would be to go to the front and try to slow this down enough to to have a little bit of horse late. The horse is way over his skis in here. He's way outmatched. I can't see a way in which he can win because I don't think that some horses, Gufo or Yabir, are that pace compromised. I think they have enough turn of foot late where they can get it done. It just happens to be the run style of these types of races more than anything else. So I ended up on I get to no surprise I'm going to eat the chalk here and end up with Gufo and Yabir probably fairly equally in here. I like Aban. I just wonder that this is quite the step up and from anything that Aban's ever run. And he hasn't been disgraced in some of his better races. His Pan American was very good. I think we already sort of said that, but I think you're defending Breeders' Cup turf champion is hard to sort of get around. And but I do say I think there is a price where Yabir stops being interesting if you're a win better. I could see a situation here where he goes off at 2-5 or something like that. I could see him absolutely being bet off the board. And this is a horse that sort of peaked for, he ran a huge Jockey Club Derby. Then he ran a huge Breeders' Cup turf. And now the last 2 races, he's sort of hung. That Meydan race, he didn't really have a ton of excuses. And I haven't watched the Newmarket race, but it seems to be a little bit of a softer race. And it seems like he's sort of hung again. So I'm sort of wondering, normally these Dubawi's take a step forward when they go from 3 to 4. And I almost wonder, is this a horse that hasn't taken that next step forward and maybe somebody, ripe to be picked off at a really short price?
I would love that.
Yeah, it does feel like he was kind of supposed to win that last race. I mean, he went off at basically 1-4 in a 5-horse field, and was beaten and fairly well beaten. I mean, a length and 3/4. I mean, the track was playing a little more towards speed that day, but nevertheless, it kind of feels like you're supposed to win that race as Yabir. So that's a good point. And if you're looking for a reason to play against, I think that is a very valid angle.
Yeah, I mean, literally in bright bold print in the note is hung, and I can't remember how many times I literally can probably count in one hand the number of times I've actually seen them be that blatant about saying a horse just hung. So yeah, I think that says something. And again, we're talking about arguably the best turf horse in the world right now and trying to pick him apart. So we're stretching here to get around him, but that's what makes this fun.
The horse I've owned 4 racehorses so far, and the one that I like the most ran at Keeneland, and she came in second. And I was super excited about it because it was opening day and I was great. And I finally saw the notes. And then the next time the past performance came out, hung. I was like, oh man.
Oh, that's rough.
They said she hung.
The other one you get like a dwelt, dwelt or a hung, They normally go with dwelt, but it's sort of odd to see those.
Come on, man. Straight up said hung. My horse was a hanger. Oh well.
Oh, that's brutal. That's brutal.
Happens. I haven't won yet. I'm over 15, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Don't have a winner yet?
No, not yet. Working on it. We're working on it.
Like nowhere, anywhere?
Nowhere, anywhere. Stinks, no harness racing, no racing at Hazel Park, no Keeneland, no fairgrounds. Oh, well. Yeah, we'll get there.
Well, I mean, you'll get there eventually.
It's hard. It's not easy. This is not an easy game. Winning racehorses isn't easy.
Yeah, I've the one that always kills me is I've owned a few. Never got a Saratoga winner, and Saratoga's my home track, so I've always wanted to be the winner's circle there. And it's like, okay, the winner's circle at Aqueduct just isn't nearly as cool as the winner's circle at Saratoga, So that's the one. That's the one I always want to get one at.
Are you going to put Stephen Fox's comment?
No, we're gonna. Caleb's ego is big enough already. We don't need. I'm like, we need to make it so he can walk out the door.
Right.
No, we're just gonna ignore that ever happened.
Never mind, Stephen. Never mind.
Steven.
Get your mind
Oh,
all together,
man.
sir.
So, great. Grade 3 Peter Pan. We're going a mile and an eighth at Belmont. That is the. I'm trying to move on and not laugh.
I know.
I just can't do it. Can't do it. Damn it, Steven, you're killing me.
Damn it.
Yeah. Grade 3 Peter Pan going a mile and an eighth. The one turn mile and an eighth at Belmont, which is a pretty unique sort of configuration. Interesting race, fairly competitive field. It always seems like the Peter Pan every year has those one or two like real standout monsters that for whatever reason weren't ready for the Derby gate, and they're coming back here pointing towards the Belmont. And this isn't the case this year. This is a pretty flat, pretty wide open race. And I thought it was interesting. There's two types of horses here. You have horses that were maiden breakers last out, and horses that are coming out of Derby trail races, coming out of G1s and effectively dropping down. And when you're looking at the horses here, sort of which way do you go? Are you looking for somebody that's getting a little class relief and seeing a new circuit and maybe less tough company? Or are you trying to find that, that horse that's going to be a force for the back half of the summer here?
Go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would prefer the horse with a little more form, I think, but it kind of depends on how they got here, I guess. If a horse was running in the Derby races and just not getting enough points to make the gate, but was running okay, that's a kind of horse I'd probably like in this spot. A horse that tackles a Derby race and gets absolutely embarrassed and then comes here as a plan B, probably not a horse I'm quite as interested in. That probably does a pretty good prelude into the picks that I kind of like and don't like in this race. And that
I think I got them queued up already for you.
You do. I like the number 5, Golden Glider. I thought this horse ran, respectably in pretty much every career start. Didn't, win a whole lot, but did get, win at Woodbine and again at Tampa. Didn't run terribly down at, in the Sam F. Davis and Tampa Bay. Kind of ran evenly in some pretty big fields in races that were very much dominated on the lead. I mean, Classic Causeway and Grantham were 1-2 the whole way around the track in the Tampa Bay Derby. And then the Bluegrass, that track was playing pretty strongly towards off the pace runners that day. Zandon and Smile Happy both came from well off of it. So I don't think he ran bad there, especially seeing what Zandon came back to do in the Kentucky Derby. That sort of flatters that form there. So I like Golden Glider in here. I think there's a lot of speed in this race, assuming nobody scratches out. To me, it sort of seems like the 1, 2, and 4 all sort of need the lead. So I'm thinking it should set up for an off-the-pace runner. So I like Golden Glider here as my top pick.
Okay, Mark. I mean, I'm trying not to go at all.
No, this was a race that I am, I'm notorious for being spread, and oh my God, am I spread in this race? I can basically make a case for almost anybody in here. I thought Electability, the 2-horse, the Chad Brown, at least isn't coming out of maiden company, does have the option 80 last out, was a pretty good effort. But again, we've had this conversation already. Do you really trust figures on horses coming out of Aqueduct? I don't know. There's also a little bit of how is the track going to be playing. This is a horse that, probably won't, I think Set Sail probably ends up on the lead and they try to steal it with the one Set Sail. But I think Electability is right, just off that and probably, sitting on his shoulder, sitting just a little bit back. I think he makes a lot of sense. Obviously, though, the connections are those that are going to take a ton of money, so you're not going to get any sort of fair value on this one. So it made sense. Probably not my top choice for that, that reason. Like Caleb, I like Golden Glider quite a lot in here. I think this is a horse. Obviously, this is a lot softer company than, Zandon and Smile Happy, coming out of that Bluegrass. And, interesting horse. And I thought Golden Glider made a fair bit of sense. And the other horse that probably ends up as my top choice, and my God, it is not a me horse, is the 6 Western River. This is a horse that if you could just cross off those first 3 starts where they tried to make this a turf horse, and just pay attention to the last 2, form really improves a ton. And I think this is just a horse that they knew was talented, probably, didn't quite know what to do with. And we're just trying to sort of figure things out. There's really not a ton of turf. I mean, it's Tappet. Tappets can run on anything, but this one doesn't jump off the page and go, turf horse to you with screaming turf pedigree. So if you look at just those last 2, those Oaklawn races were both really good, improving sort of form here. You're getting Sayers up, which is always a good thing. And I thought was a horse that made a lot of sense. It's a Tappet, so I'm sure the horse is a head case, but probably that right run style, a little bit off the pace, and might be one that gets a little lost on the board just sort of due to connections that are not connections. I mean, Sayers will take money in New York, but Brisset does not tend to take as much money in New York.
Yeah, so that's going to be my top pick also, Western River. I mean, and you nailed it exactly. They thought he was going to be a turf horse, and then they gave him 176 days off and sent him to Oaklawn. Well, you're not going to be a turf horse when you go to Oaklawn. So obviously his form increased dramatically there. I think it did him wonders, and I think that he's probably your I can't say most likely winner, but I think he's the value here in this race for exactly what you said. He might get forgotten. If you look at this race, there's one stakes winner in the bunch. That's the number 7 Cook Creek. He won a stakes at Delaware last October. That's the last time he won a race. I'm not interested in that one at all. He last was seen finishing 8th, beaten by 17.5 lengths. In the Withers, I know it was muddy, but he had 2 races in a row where he ran in the slop, and he did much better on January 1st than he did on February 5th on the Wither. So I don't think it was necessarily the slop there. I just don't think he's as good as some of these other ones. So I'm against the 7. I'm also against the 8 state planning. But in this race, there's 3 horses that won their first 2 races of their career, and I think those are ones that you might want to use. We talked about the number 1 Set Sail, who probably will get up to the lead. You got to use that one. Electability won 2 of his 3 races. I think that's one you need to use. And then We the People won his first 2 races. Last time he got beat bad in the Arkansas Derby, but it was the Arkansas Derby. Look who he ran against. So if you look at a horse who has some experience running in some better company, definitely We the People. So for me, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and 6 here. Oh, I'm sorry. I can't forget the 5. Also, Golden Glider. He won his first 2 races of his career. So 1, 2, 3, 5 for me, and 6 on top. So it's tough. This is a really tough
Ryan. We're gonna have to have you back more often, just so I'm not the one who's buying every race. I like this. It makes me feel good. It feels like I'm super fine tuned here.
That was
tough. He's leaving off the favorite at least. You got to give him that much.
Yeah. It's a tough race, man.
Yeah, I don't hate your guys at 6. I think his form looks nice. I don't really believe the last Fig, but I do think that he gets the right setup, and he kind of fits in here, and you should get a price. The other horse I kind of wanted to touch on, probably the only horse I'll use besides the 5, is the 1 Set Sail. This is a last stop maiden breaker, which are not typically horses I like to gravitate towards, as everybody probably knows by now. But I thought that first maiden race he had in February at Santa Anita was a super live race. And this horse actually went off the favorite, despite the fact there was a Baffert horse and a couple other big hitters entered that day. He ran 3rd after having a bit of an eventful trip. Not a bad 3rd by any means. Out of that race, there's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 runners to come back and race again. 4 of them won next out, and then the one that didn't won the following time. So a super live race. That's always an angle I like to look for. Set Sail obviously showed up and just crushed the field next time out. So this is a horse I think, even though there is a lot of other speed with the rail draw and Rosario, I think this horse probably gets the lead anyway, and might just be that much the best in here. So I don't know what price you get. I could see this horse getting hammered just because of the California shipper coming in angle, but that's the other horse I would look at.
Yeah, I'll throw up a comment here from Jay. I sort of saw the same thing. I just didn't know what to do. I know Dickie mentioned the 7 Cook Creek here. Of course, has a pedigree that says he should like the off going, but that doesn't always happen. And if it's just a case of he didn't like the kickback and didn't handle the off going, and you can kind of excuse those last 2, his form does dramatically improve. Now, the problem is this is also a horse that looks like he maybe the quintessential didn't improve from 2 to 3. We see that a lot with certain trainers, and Jeremiah not being one of them, but we do see that a lot with certain trainers. And my other concern is that they're calling for a lot of rain in the forecast. So if he didn't like rain before, what's going to change now? Blinks do go on, but that's a really low percentage move for Jeremiah. Interesting horse, but again, I want to like him, and I want to like him for a couple of reasons, it just felt like I was really stretching to sort of get to him. So I couldn't quite go there, but I thought Jay's points were at least interesting enough to bring up.
Yeah, not for me, but you'll get a good price. So if you want to go for him and think that it's just a kickback issue and he stays wide or gets more forward with the blinkers, then you'll get paid to go there.
Okay, and not that I want to beat things into the ground here, because we talk about every race and take an hour for everyone and the whole deal. But the 8 State Planning, any love for this horse? I realize on paper he's too slow, but he's won his last 2. One that made in special weight really impressively at Aqueduct, steps up a little bit. T-Mac were opinions amount. T-Mac hasn't had a great start to the Belmont meet, but he was second in the Riders title at Aqueduct, so he's riding really phenomenally well there. New York bred. Obviously class test here, but should have the right run style. If there's a bit of pace here, he's going to be coming from a little bit out of it as well at a really stupid price.
Stupid is right.
I think he hits the board maybe, but I don't think he can win.
Fair.
I think I like that's a much better answer, Caleb. I like it.
That's like the Caleb political answer. He doesn't.
Yeah, that's not a politically correct answer.
He doesn't want to tell me, Mark, you're an idiot, but he really wanted to tell me, Mark, you're an idiot.
I would never say that for sure. I promise you. I don't think you're an idiot at all.
Oh man! And on to the last race, the Big A. Again, we're going 16s on the turf. You're obviously very short morning line favorite, and I'm sure will be much shorter come post time as Rogier, horse, was the winner of the Prix de la Opera, and ended up then going to the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare, where had probably one of the dumbest trips in the history of stupid trips. We'll talk about that more later. My real question here for everybody is, Rogier is going to be really super short here. And I say really only one sort of check against her, and can she win on firm turf? She's never done that before.
Yeah, that's the big question for me. I have it literally written on my PPs, like better on soft. And, she didn't embarrass herself at Del Mar, which was certainly firm, but I think she is better with a little bit of cut in the ground, to be sure. Better, some of her best efforts, like in the, in the Prix de l'Opera over at France. I think that that was on pretty much a bog of a turf course that day. So I think that she would like it if it came up good to yielding on Saturday, to be sure.
Yeah, and again with that rain, she might just look out and catch another soft going here. Ryan, go ahead.
This pace, I don't know. I'm having a hard time figuring this pace out, to be honest with you. I mean,
there is no pace. There's
just a wonky race from a pace setup for sure.
I'm just trying to figure out who do I think is going to be at the lead in the quarter, and I think it's probably maybe Stolen Holiday, but I say that like I'm Ron Burgundy reading the teleprompter. Maybe Stolen Holiday.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
I'm Ron Burgundy. No, I don't know. I really don't know, and it makes this race difficult for me because obviously people are going to want to bet the two Browns. The two Brown horses, the 1 and the 2. And, he's proven that he's done pretty well in stakes races at Belmont on the turf. So where do you go here? What do you do? This one's tough too.
Yeah. So, I think if you look at both of the 2-back race out of Stolen Holiday and the 2-back weight race out of Plum Ali, both of them wired the fields that they're in. So both of them has shown that they can go to the lead and they can wire races. I think those are probably your pace pressure type horses. Again, there's going to be a huge thing over what's trainer intention here. Are Stolen Holiday and Plum Ali going to try to go to the front and press this pace? I don't really think so, but I think they both may sort of inherit a lead because there's another bunch of horses in here that don't necessarily want it.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I mean, if I have to pick one horse and say, okay, this is the horse that I want, I'm going to have to go with Plum Ali because I don't want the short prices on either of the two Browns. So, I mean, this one's proven, like you said, can go wire to wire. And this is a second race off the layoff. So 6-1 morning line, you got to assume that with the two favorites here, that it's going to be somewhat near there. So, I mean, do I want a 5-1 winner beating the two odds on? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So I'm going to have to go with the 4 here. But, it's probably going to be the 1 or the 2.
By the way, Steven, we're talking Plum Ali because she's won her last 2. So
Yep.
that'd be why we're talking Plum Ollie.
Yeah,
Even
I
though
want her the
yeah,
best on top.
and I know where Steven's coming from here. If you look at her speed figures, she's not. She should be 10 lengths behind. Behind a couple of others in here. She makes no sense for. I don't know how she gets a trip that she can win this, but from a pace scenario and just a run style, I do sort of like her. So it's sort of a weird horse where you go, okay, she's not fast enough on paper and she's never run fast enough to win,
Right.
but she has the run style that probably is super interesting in this race. So
that's the fun part about, public handicapping, especially, a couple days before the race, is saying, I don't think this horse has a chance, but you should bet this horse because I think the horse is going to win. And it doesn't make any, it doesn't make any sense. But like, I know what you mean. Like, I hope that the people who are watching know what you mean. Like, yeah, this horse probably isn't going to win, but it's the one I'm probably going to want the most.
Oh, go ahead, Caleb.
I was gonna say I kind of like Plum Ollie here. I don't know where you're coming from, Mark. With she's never been fast enough to win. I mean, on time form, she's right there with everybody else. Her paired 117s, last two out. Moving off second off the layoff here, would expect her to move forward after pairing up her 3-year-old top. So I think she's a contender. She was a hard horse to trust, given some of her how she spiraled off form in her 3-year-old season toward the end of that. But seems like maybe she figured something out, or maybe just getting back to Aqueduct is what she needed. I don't know. I mean, she does have a win over Belmont. She's not my top pick in here, but she is the top pick that I'd probably be willing to win bet, putting it a different way.
Yeah, I guess my take was LeMistress won a 123 and a 128, and Plum Ollie's paired 2 117s.
Yeah, well, didn't somebody tell me something about big figs?
Big figures and losing efforts. Yeah, you got a point there. And also, they don't run the races on paper. Yeah, I know. I've been told all these things.
I like how this is going. This is great for me.
But no. I mean, sure, Plum Ollie can win. My main issue with Plum Ollie is sort of she's a class test horse for me. She's a horse that when she goes up in class and faces really good company, she doesn't bring her A game. When she's running in black type stakes at Aqueduct, she wins races. When she's running versus real horses in G1s and G2s, she doesn't bring her A game and just sort of doesn't get it done, or hasn't got it done since 2020. So she's very much a class test horse for me, and I think that's more why I don't want her. But again, if somebody ripped her, she's probably a great tournament pick type horse because you're going to get the right price for her. And I think she's a little interesting on that, on that regard. I know I'll get through. I'm going to be chalk eating weasel in here again because that's how I roll. I think Rogier, if you watched her filly and mare turf, she was. The running lines do not do how dumb of a trip she got it justice. She was checked early. She was really tight in second. She sort of was rushed up on heels and then pulled way back. It just was an absolutely bizarre trip. It seemed like Jan didn't really know what he wanted to do with her. She came out of that race. They shipped her back to France, and Peter Brandt paid $3.3 million for her. In the same sale that he paid $3.3 million for, he bought another horse named Speak of the Devil, who has been Rogier's workout partner. So if you watched this past weekend at Churchill and you saw how Speak of the Devil ran, and Chad has that horse paired up with Rogier, and they seem to be sort of working in tandem and working similarly. I haven't actually seen, I haven't seen workout reports on it. I have a feeling that Rogier is probably all sorts of loaded, and Peter Brandt doesn't drop that kind of coin on a horse that he doesn't think is a monster. And he did probably also had Chad going, yeah, go buy this one. This one's going to be a monster when you bring it to the States. This one should really fit the going here. Again, I still think you have to get past the, how soft does the turf come up, and does she actually want to go across soft or across firm or going? If it comes up really firm, that may be a chink in her armor, but I think beyond that, I think she's just about as close to a lock as I can get on this card.
Caleb, you're one of my favorite people on Twitter. You're a very astute handicapper, but Mark just talked me into singling the number one here.
That's my top pick here too. I'm just, if I'm going to win bet this, I'm not going to win bet Rogier at 3-5 or whatever. I mean, 6-1 on Plum Ollie or whatever you get. I mean, I would take my chances in a win bet. But horizontals, I think Rogier's the horse. Plum Ollie is probably a C for me. My biggest opinion here is I'm not going to have Lemista on the ticket. I've never thought this horse is very good. I'm sure Mark will defensively use her as a B in this race. But for me, She's got big figs, but those races are bad. I mean, the Bogey last year, the field is a combined 0 for 14. Every runner out of that race is yet to win in multiple attempts. The Diana, she finished dead last at 3-1, and then she finished third in a 5-horse field at Arlington Park. So for me, I mean, this horse won't make a single one of my tickets. Don't know if Pratt had choice, but he does end up on the 1, and it seems like he's been getting the better chads. So no thank you to the East.
You had 2 today that killed me: Starbucks Downs and Winter Duck.
This is every Thursday. This is we have to come up with new names to pick on each other about. So it just keeps rolling. So yeah. Ryan, did you end up just singling? I talked you right into her gear. It's hardly boring if we all agree.
Absolutely, that's what I'm going to do. I say now, and then I'll probably play the 1 and the 4.
So somebody in here, Jay, once again, it seems like I'm highlighting all Jay tonight, but he mentioned our flash drive. Gets first run, 47 and change with 4 furlong, 47 change work, coming off a bullet, ran her best figure in a G2. Any love for our flash drive in here? Anybody trying to dig this deep to find a price?
I don't hate her. I don't hate this horse at all.
If the field didn't come up this strong, I actually would probably like a horse like this in this spot. But I think this came up very tough for a G3. I think she's probably in a little too tough.
Yeah, I mean, this race to me very much feels like one of those. It's actually a G1, but it came up a G3 because everybody's trying to get a race into horses pointing for, either last week of Belmont or first, week or two of Saratoga. And people are sort of planning out their summer and they went, okay, we need a race now. So you're getting a bunch of G1 types that are running in a G3. And that's really what it felt like. But yeah, I think I completely agree with Caleb. If it was any other field than this, our flash drive would be one that I would be super interested in.
I think I want to apply what I've learned here tonight. I don't think our flash drive will win, but I think she can hit the board.
Yeah. I would 100% agree with that. She might be the kind of horse that you maybe key underneath in a trifecta or something like that. And if she stuck to third, all of a sudden your tri pays probably fairly okay, given the fact it's only a 7-horse field.
All right.
Sweet Sassy has already got this horse's entire summer planned out. Belmont Stakes Festival, Stars and Stripes, Saratoga. Okay. Prepping for the Belmont Fall. Really? Okay. You sure? So Sweet Sassy, you don't really think this is a Breeders' Cup bound potential with, I'm assuming we're talking about Rogier. You don't think Rogier ends up in the Filly and Mare Turf? We'll give him a second because there's at least a 30-second lag. So, Jay, Christ, this is the crap I get. Freaking Jay, my God.
That's the comment of someone who had the group pick 6, huh?
Yeah. Let's not talk about the group pick 6.
There's been a couple of really good things in the chat here, but Jay and Stephen Fox are bringing it today.
Yeah, this is par for the course. I somehow signed up for this crap. Do so willingly. I don't understand why. I'm not that smart. So anything else you guys want to talk about on this card, or anything else on anything? I guess to say anything else you're excited for this weekend?
I haven't looked at anything else besides these 5 races, to be honest. Usually I'm a little bit light in between Derby and Preakness. It's not always the best day of racing.
Yeah, I'm sort of in the same.
I actually kind of hate the Preakness, to be honest with you. It's another story.
I mean, I don't much love the Preakness, and honestly, I don't much love the Derby. So
let's hear it. Why do we not like the Preakness so much? Are we gonna talk about it or no?
I think there's this thing that sort of, if you look at the Triple Crown, first thing, I think the Triple Crown is an overhyped series of 3 races in a row. I think it means much less than it did 50 years ago.
Okay.
And I think that if you look at the Preakness is the redheaded stepchild of the entire Triple Crown series. You have huge purse for the Derby, huge purse for the Belmont, and the Preakness is half the purse of the Belmont. It's, I have no problem with the scheduling, the 2-week thing, the quick turnaround. I think that's just, if you're that good, you should be able to make that turnaround. Zero issues there. My thing is just that, the undercard tends to be really kind of not that great races, with the exception of, what is it, the Turf Monster, the Turf Sprint race that they have there. That race normally comes up good because there's just not a lot of good graded turf stakes or turf sprint stakes. But beyond that, it's just kind of a not that great day of racing. A lot of, locally bred horses, Maryland, mid-Atlantic types that I don't necessarily love to bet. And I just think the Preakness is, you also run into that fact of there's so many Derby horses that run the Derby, don't have their A game, they get laid off and they point for the Belmont. So you tend to have a softer field, or sort of the fresh faces, but it's just not as compelling of a race as either the Derby or the Belmont are.
My answer is a lot simpler. I just don't like the undercards. I think the Preakness itself is a fun race, and I always watch and bet the Preakness. But one of my favorite things about Derby Day and Belmont Day and whatever is like you get a ton of really good races. And for me, the undercards on Preakness weekend are just, they don't do much for me. It's horses I don't really know. It's circuits I don't really follow. I usually lose a whole bunch of money, and that doesn't make me happy, so I don't like it.
Yeah, Sweet Sassy realizing that the Turf Monster, I think, is at Parks, and the McKay Turf Sprint is the one that's at Pimlico.
It's twice you referenced Parks tonight, Mark. Maybe
I know I've referenced Parks. I mean, but the Lord of Parks is in chat, so I figured you would have corrected me when I screwed up.
I was gonna, but you were going for a while.
Can I mention Parks?
You can mention whatever you'd like.
All right, I'm going to mention Parks. The first race on the card here at Belmont, first race is a New York maiden for 3 and up. The first race of number 5's career NY Anthem for John Service was at Parks. He finished third, beaten by 3 3/4 lengths in a 7 furlong sprint. This one's shortening to 6 furlongs. He got slammed coming out of the gate, kind of cost him a little bit of placing there, and he finished pretty strong. It says, if you look at the running lines, it says he weakened late. I looked at it. I don't think he weakened late. So I think at 8-1 on the morning line, NY Anthem in the opener at Belmont on Saturday might be a nice little price horse coming out of Parks.
Especially when you have Kendrick and it would be Jason's Service.
John.
Not
John.
Was
it John? John,
yeah.
John, not John.
Yeah.
Are 43% on the year with a $3.89 ROI, and you're getting 8-1 with those kind of connections. Yeah, sure. I think that's a wide open horse on a wide open field in a rate, and that's a horse that'll probably be somewhat ignored in there.
Yeah. That's it. That's all I got for Parks.
That's all the Parks. Caleb, you don't want to wax poetically about your favorite track?
Yeah, there's a $10,000 claimer, non-winner of One Lifetime race. No, I'm just kidding.
Tricked you.
You said 10,000. You mean 1,000, right?
Yes. Well, inflation.
Well, inflation. Okay, cool.
This show has everything.
Yeah, everything. We're going everywhere. Oh man. Alrighty. Anybody have anything else?
Do we want to talk about whether it was the right decision with Rich Strike, or do we glance on that good enough?
I think we can throw it back and go there. Let me see if I can. There we go. Jeff, how about it? What are your opinions, Mr. Dickey?
I think when you look at the video that was posted a couple days after the Derby win, when Rich Strike was on the training track at Mercury Equine Center, when he made his way around for the first time, he kind of bowed his head a little bit, and you hear the trainer say, now you're feeling better. Now you're feeling better. What did he mean when he said that? Now you're feeling better. Was he not feeling better? Maybe he was tired, maybe whatever. So maybe the horse isn't 100%, and maybe not running in the Preakness, 14 days later, probably the best idea for that horse. That's the way I feel.
I think my takeaway is the fact that I wish the Triple Crown was less of a focus in horse racing. Mm-hmm. And I think that I love to see a trainer say, hey, I'm going to do what's best for my horse. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to campaign him how I think is best for him in his career. They got it. He barely squeaked into the Derby. You had a crazy upset. And I think he's looking and saying, okay, how do we campaign this horse now? Where do we put him that's going to be the best for him and give us the best shot of winning? And quite honestly, I think the year, again, 30, 40 years ago, winning the Triple Crown was huge from a stud fee standpoint. I think this, in this year or today's racing, if he was to do something like run in the Belmont, run well, and then do maybe, I don't know, a Haskell or a Jim Dandy, choose one of them, and then run in the Travers and run in the Breeders' Cup and do well in those races the back half of the year, that's probably better for his stud career than necessarily, I don't think there's a chance. I think there's basically 0% chance that he could win the Triple Crown. I think campaigning him in that way to do what's best for the horse and do what's best for the connections probably is better from a stud career standpoint. I think it's a win-win-win all the way around. I have zero problems with it. And, it seems there's a lot of people on Twitter and the Twitter horse racing space who are sort of, we always want to do what's best for the horse, unless the horse wins the Derby and now they're not going to run the Preakness. Then suddenly everybody's up in arms. It's like, you can't have it both ways.
Yeah, you never say that about the horse that wins the Travers. You never want the horse that wins the Travers to race 2 weeks later. Nobody ever says that. Like, no one's ever clamoring and has their pitchforks and their torches out saying, he's got to run 2 weeks later. So,
yep. Yeah, I mean, people are all up in arms about it, and I don't really give a shit, to be honest. One way or the other. Okay. I guess my question is, like, why is he skipping the Preakness? Because I haven't seen a real reason. I didn't see him come out and say that the horse was stiff or that he lost a bunch of weight or anything like that. And if that's the case, then I totally support them making that decision if he's just not race ready. But he hasn't come out and said that. In fact, the horse actually is scheduled to work tomorrow, I think. So it sounds like he's in fine shape. And I think that's kind of what got people bent out of shape a little bit, is that it just seems like they're skipping it because maybe they don't think they can win or whatever. I don't know why, but I would say that, well, if it's truly for the best of the horse, then I support it. But I will say it's probably not to the advantage of the sport at large, because the Kentucky Derby winner not running in the Preakness is not good for getting new blood and new fans into the game, when the one horse they probably can name isn't actually in the second Jewel of the Triple Crown.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. And it's also hard when the trainer comes out and basically says the next morning that the horse ate the bottom out of the barrel, of his feed barrel. So you're implying that the horse came out of the race really well. He ate normally. He didn't have any sort of issues. And then suddenly a couple days later, it's a different tune. So
you think we might be getting Country House here?
Country House 2.0.
You think they'll run this horse?
I honestly don't. No, I don't think. I think you see this horse a bunch of times. I don't think this is a Country House scenario. I think you just given the connections, I think you see this horse again. And I'm taking it at face value for now that they're doing what's best for the horse and they're trying to campaign him successfully. And I will give him the benefit of the doubt until proven otherwise.
Very, very fair. I think you're very fair there.
Cool. Yep. We got anything else? Guys, it has absolutely been a pleasure. Ryan, thank you for stepping in on somewhat short notice. Really appreciate it. Your content was always insightful as always. And guys, until next time, good luck at the races.